It is 2:30 p.m. in Tehran. It is 1 p.m. in Damascus. I'm Monita, Rajpal. This is CNN. You're watching World One live from London. Iran announces a turnaround as tensions mount over its nuclear program. Tehran now says nuclear inspectors can visit a military complex at Parchin 2 weeks after they were sent packing. Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu will spend Tuesday making the rounds of the U.S. Congress before flying home. CNN's Fanoula Sweeney is in Jerusalem. She joins us now. Fanoula, how much support does Netanyahu have domestically on this tough talk against Iran?
Well, an opinion poll recently published at the weekend by the Brookings Institution in Washington in a survey of Israelis said that only...
Well, in Syria, activists say government forces have broadened their assault on the opposition. They say troops have stormed a city in Deraa and military units are surrounding a village in Hama province. Now, a leading U.S. senator says attacking the Syrian military from the air is the only way to protect civilians on the ground. McCain says airstrikes could create safe havens where rebel fighters could get organized and trained. The Syrian opposition already has the firepower of soldiers who've defected from the army, but they are vastly outnumbered and outgunned. The U.S. says Syria's armed forces, including reserves, number about 600,000 men. Of that, as many as 10,000, less than 2% of the total, could have joined the opposition, including groups like the Free Syrian Army. Now, the UN says 2,000 Syrians have crossed the border into Lebanon in the past 2 days to escape the government's assault on homes. The UN's humanitarian chief, Valerie Amos, has now been allowed into Syria, and she says she'll arrive in Damascus on Wednesday. CNN's Arwa Damon is following developments from the Lebanese capital in Beirut. She joins us now with more. Arwa.
Hi, Monita.
For some of the people trapped in homes, just staying alive is all that matters. There's little food, no electricity, and almost nobody to turn to for help. French surgeon Jacques Bert witnessed their plight. The co-founder of Médecins Sans Frontières has just returned from Syria, where he spent weeks working in makeshift hospitals, treating people wounded by sniper bullets and shrapnel. It is Super Tuesday in the U.S. and what could be a make or break day. Republicans fighting for the party's nomination to run for president will compete in 10 state contests. But as Jonathan Mann explains, this Super Tuesday may not be quite so super.
For months, Republicans in state after state have been holding primary elections or caucuses.
Thanks, Jonathan Mann, there reporting. Well, let's check in with CNN's political editor, Paul Steinhauser, who joins us now from the battleground state of Ohio. Paul, good to see you. Tell us how critical or how crucial of a day is Super Tuesday?
It is in many ways. Listen, if
to give you an idea of just where the candidates have been campaigning in the run-up to Super Tuesday, you're going to see a lot of traveling here across the United States. Let's begin here with Newt Gingrich. He has been stuck, he has stuck to the eastern U.S. in his home state of Georgia there in the southeast, as well as Tennessee and Ohio, a crucial battleground state. Now, when we go to Mitt Romney here, he has spent time in the East, but he's been campaigning in the Pacific Northwest as well. So he's pretty much crisscrossed across the country before returning to fight for votes in Ohio. A similar picture there for Rick Santorum. His focus, though, was on Ohio, on Georgia, and then in Oklahoma. And finally, Ron Paul is the only one who didn't seem to spend a lot of time in the eastern or southern state. He's done most of his campaigning in the northwest part of the United States, in Idaho, in Alaska, and the state of Washington, which held its caucuses on Saturday. You are watching World One live from London. A dispute over oil is threatening to undo a hard-won peace between Sudan and the newly independent South Sudan. Tensions are rising fast, and so are fears that another war is on the horizon. Representatives from each side are meeting in Ethiopia to resume talks over what the South must pay for pumping its oil exports through Sudan's pipelines. CNN's Nema El-Bagir is here to tell us more about that. One observer I was reading was saying if there was a scale between 1 and 10, between 10 being most likely to be at war, they're at a 7 or an 8.
I mean, they really are pushing it very close to the boundary at the moment. You know, the U.S. envoy, Princeton Lyman, has said that he believes that there is no appetite for war at this point in time.
Thank you so much, Namal Bakr, here in London with us. Now, Iran says it'll open the doors of its Parchin military facility to nuclear inspectors who'd previously been denied access. Reza Sayah is monitoring the situation from Islamabad in Pakistan. And Reza, you've covered Iran extensively for us. Tell us, how significant of a move is this that Iran is saying that inspectors can enter the Parchin facility?
Well, first off, Monita, we have to see if Iran actually follows through with this.
Reza, thank you. Reza Sayah there in Islamabad for us. We want to take a look at what newspapers around the world are saying about this. In the United Arab Emirates, the National's headline is U.S. brings some sense to a risky debate on war, referring to President Obama's comments on loose talk of war. It says the rush to war advocated by Israeli hardliners and Republican presidential candidates received a much-needed check. Cooler heads for a day, at least, prevailed. The headline in the Europe edition of the Wall Street Journal is Obama's hawkish Iran turn. It's an opinion piece that says it is good to hear Mr. Obama finally sounding serious about stopping a nuclear Iran, but if he now finds himself pleading with Israel not to take matters in its own hands, he should know his administration's vacillation and mixed signals have done much to force Jerusalem's hand. And finally, here in Britain, a comment piece in The Guardian with the headline, Straining at the Leash. It says it is more important than ever to remember that while the IAEA has serious concerns about a possible bomb program, there is no proof to launch a full-scale war in the Middle East on the basis of a hunch would be folly itself. Activists in Syria say government forces are widening their attack on opposition strongholds. Troops are said to have stormed a city in Daraa province with tanks and armor. In Australia, thousands of people in the east of the country have been ordered to evacuate as floodwaters continue to rise. Meteorologist Mari Ramos is at the World Weather Centre with more on that. Mari.
Hey, Monita, what a mess across parts of southeastern Australia. As we speak, there are 21 different evacuation orders.
Mari, thank you.
Sure.
This is World One, live from London. All the talk of Linsanity, the Lakers, the Bulls, and the Heat, the team that's really dominating the NBA this season, is the unheralded and slightly unfashionable, they say, Oklahoma City Thunder. Alex Thomas is here with more on that and the rest. That's a little mean, isn't it?
Well, it's just the truth, really. And it's a bit unfair on them because they got the best record in the NBA. They don't dominate the headlines, although Oklahoma City's game against
Thanks for that, Alex. Appreciate it. You're watching World One live from London.
Back.
You are watching World One. Here are some of the stories that we're talking about. Rush Limbaugh is becoming something of a magician. He's turning law students to prostitutes and making advertisers disappear. The radio commentator caused outrage when he called a young woman a slut and a prostitute for saying health care coverage should include contraception. He later apologized, but it wasn't enough to turn back the tide of advertisers pulling out. On Monday, AOL joined a dozen companies who said they were dropping ads during Limbaugh's show. Well, news of another famous broadcaster, Oprah Winfrey. She is going to be on television for a special interview with Whitney Houston's teenage daughter. The show will reveal how Bobby Christina is coping without her mother. The pop star's brother, Gary, will also be on the show to talk about the rumors surrounding Whitney Houston's death. And it was around before the Titanic sank, through 2 world wars, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and man's first steps on the moon. We're talking about the Oreo cookie. Oreos are turning 100 years old today, and a special version is coming out called Birthday Cake Oreos. You can also look out for a global ad campaign showing the Oreo twist, the lick, and the dunk. Britain's Prince Harry has left the Bahamas for Jamaica, another sunny island nation, but the welcome may not be as warm. It's interesting, I guess it would, depending on who you'd put your money on in terms of who would win that match, but when we take it away from, I guess, the fun stuff of, a racing match with Usain Bolt, he's also going to be meeting with the Prime Minister there, and it could be quite tense, one might say. And it seems as though Prince Harry, from I guess what we've been seeing in the pictures that you've sent back to us, is that a lot of people across the islands that he has been to, the nations that he's visited, is that everyone seems to be pro-Harry.
Yeah, he does seem to sort of work the crowds incredibly well.
Yeah, he seems like such a fun guy to hang around and, of course, to follow. That'd be the one royal you'd want to follow as well. Max, thank you so much. Our royal correspondent, Max Foster, there in Kingston. You are watching World One, live from London. I'm Monita Rajpal. Thank you for joining us. We'll update you the news headlines at the top of the hour right here on CNN.